Welcome to Andy's Garage. I'm Andy Phillips. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the lower ball joint on a Chevy Silverado. Now this particular one is a 2008 Silverado 1500 with the 4.8 liter V8 engine. Any vehicles that have the similar setup as that, it would be the same. I'll have some links down in the description for you to check that out. But let's go ahead and get started. Coming into the wheel well, we have our rotor and our caliper. We're going to have to remove all of this to get to that lower ball joint. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, we need to remove the caliper. To do that, you have these two bolts right here for your caliper guide pins. These are 3/4. You have a 3/4 here, and then you have another one right down here at the bottom. So we remove those, and then this whole caliper will come off. There we go. Now we'll come on to the bottom one here. And these can be on sometimes a little tight. So you got to put a little bit of force into it. If not, you can bang it. There we go. There we go. Now the caliper will come off. Next, we need to remove the axle nut cover. Let's see, we should be able to get it off. There we go. And now I'll show you the axle nut. Here's your axle nut here. Now this is a 36 millimeter nut, so you'll need a 36 millimeter socket to remove that. Now normally, if you try to remove this, that's going to rotate. So what you want to do is just take a flathead screwdriver. You have these grooves here in the rotor. We can lodge it in there. So we'll put it on this side, right before the caliper rail. I'm sorry, not the caliper rail, but the caliper bracket. We'll lock it in there. So now that's nice and locked. And for this, I'm using a breaker bar. You definitely want something strong because these can be locked on. There we go. If not, if you have an impact wrench, that's a good idea as well. But now once it's loosened, we can remove this. And now we can just take it off. And this can now just be pushed through. Sometimes if it's tight, you can take a mallet and tap it through. But if you're going to do that, highly recommend leaving this on here just to this point. So that way you don't run the risk of damaging the threads. There's also a washer in here. Don't forget to take that off. Hold on to that as well. This is our lower control arm, and our ball joint is right there. So we need to remove this 21 millimeter. And I just removed the cotter pin from it. So you're going to want to remove that, replace it when you're done. But we're going to remove that so we can pop the lower control arm off. And then we can remove the upper control arm, which is right there. And then we can remove this whole steering knuckle. And then we can press out the old ball joint and put the new one in. These can be very tight, so you probably need a breaker bar, or if you have an impact wrench, it helps. But now that we remove that, we can knock this out. Next, we're going to remove the tie rod. So you have a 21 millimeter nut underneath. Sometimes you may have a cotter pin going through that. You have to remove it. Make sure you replace it when you're done. But we're going to remove that so we can pop this out of the way. And then now we're going to bang that up to pop it out. These can be tight, so you can just take a hammer and give it a good whack like that. It'll pop right up. And then now we can get that out of the way, set it off to the side. You can see the CV axle looks really bad. If you want to see the video where I show how to replace it, you can check it out down in the description, also across the top. Okay, so right here we have our upper control arm right here. That's an 18 millimeter. So what I'm using here is just a breaker bar putting it on. There we go, loosening it up. There we go, we can take that off. So I'm going to remove this. We can bump that out, and then the steering knuckle can then come out. You do have these lines here. You want to get them off of there as well. So we'll pop those off with a screwdriver. All right, so I just popped the upper control arm, the ball joint out. We removed this line up here. You just take a flathead screwdriver, pop that out, because otherwise you're going to put strain on it. Now that we have slack, we can lift it right here off the lower one. We can set it down like this, and you've got enough slack here that it's not straining it. So we'll set this here, and rest it like this. And then now we can press out this ball joint, put the new one in, and then put everything back together. There's a snap ring here that we need to remove. So I have a remover tool here, and we'll be able to put it in there and then open it to get that off. Once that's off, then we're going to press that out, and then we can press the new one in, put the new ring on, and I'll show you. You're going to need one of these pressing tools right here, so that way you can press the old one out, press the new one in. So you want to make sure that you get that. I'll have some links down in the description for that. And then you are going to need a set of these snap ring pliers as well, so that way you can remove that ring. And then obviously you're going to need your replacement ball joint, and you will need grease, because once you put it in, you're going to have to put the grease fitting here on the end and then fill it up. So the fitting that you're going to want, you want one that you can see, here's the base right here. It's got to be able to go around it so you can push it into it. You don't want one where it's hitting like that. It's got to cover it like this. And as you can see, it can work its way through the hole as we push it down. And then now we're going to set it up where the top will push it through. All right, so we'll put our pliers right there, open it up. And then that snap ring comes right out, and then now this can be pressed out. Here's the setup all complete. So we're going to be tightening down on that. You can use a ratchet or a breaker bar, and we're going to be tightening down. So that's going to push it through now that the snap ring's out, and it's going to push it into this cylinder. And then we have the hole through there, so it can work its way down, and that'll push it out. And then when we put the new one in, same process, but in reverse. You can use an impact wrench. However, I found just a nice breaker bar. You get better pressure that way. So we have our breaker bar on it. It's going to take a little bit of time. But you'll press it out better this way. You can already see it. And I put a little adapter here to get a flatter push on it. All right, it looks like we may have it out. Yeah, there we go. So it's out. So now, remove this. And we have this adapter. This is our old ball joint. That's what it should look like. You can see how crushed that one was. But now we're ready to press the new one in, and then we'll grease it up, and then we're done with it. So here's obviously the old one, and that's the new one. Now to press the new one in, you can see the fitting that we have. It slides inside of it, but you want this outer rim to be hitting it, so that way it can push it in. You don't want it falling inside of it. And then on top of here, we're going to put another fitting that this can fit into, and then tighten up in there. And then now for this side, we're going to use this piece. because this one here, it can slide right inside of it. We'll put that on the top, and then we'll sandwich it down and press it on. And this shows you how it should be set up. So obviously this is your ball joint in here. We're going to press it into that. So as we tighten it up top, we're going to now sandwich it in like that, and then get that pressed in. You want to make sure you have that straight and level. You don't want it on an angle to where it's pushing it in on an angle and you're damaging it. All right. And I think we are in. Let me give it a little more turn. You want it to be completely snug in there, which I think we're almost there. All right. We are good. So now we'll take this off. We'll take a look at it, and then the next thing we need to do is we need to fill it with grease. See how it's tight. Grease fitting will go on top, the snap ring, and then we can start filling it, and then we're done. Bring our grease fitting in. Tighten that on there. Okay, we got that on there. Next, we're going to take our snap ring pliers. Ready to get this. We're going to open it up, slide it over here. Let's see. There we go. Want to make sure that that's around that lip, which it is. I'll get a close-up so you can see it, and then now we can fill it with grease. You can see that. We have the fitting on. We have the snap ring, and see how it fits right there. We're good. We'll connect here to the fitting. Here we go. And you're going to want to fill it until this thing is filled with grease. And let me get the camera lower so you can see it, but it's starting to fill up. You can see it filling. All right, so we've put everything back, and it would pretty much be the same way as when we took it off, but that wraps up this video on how to replace the lower ball joint on a Chevy Silverado. As mentioned already before, this is the 1500. It's a 2008 4.8 liter V8. I hope that this video was informative for you and helped you out. Please send me any questions and comments. I would love to hear from you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.